Growing up in the 1950s in Britain meant living in a world still shaking off the dust of war, quiet, proud, and careful with every penny. The country was rebuilding, families were starting fresh, and small comforts felt like miracles. Before color TV, before supermarkets, before everything sped up, this was Britain learning how to live again. So put the kettle on, and let's step back into the 1950s, a world of starch, steam, and Sunday best. And if this brings back memories, don't forget to subscribe. There's plenty more to come. Number 1. National Service. For young men turning 18, the call came in the post. 18 months of national service. It wasn't optional, and it wasn't glamorous. You learned to shave, march, and do exactly as you were told. It was cold, exhausting, and character building, or so every father later claimed. By 1960, it was gone, replaced by choice instead of duty. But for the men of the 1950s, those months defined them and shaped how they raised the next generation. Number 2. The first television. For most of the 1950s, the radio, or the wireless, was the beating heart of the home. The BBC voice spoke with calm authority and comfort. But in 1953, everything changed. The Queen's coronation arrived, and so did television. Only 1 in 10 homes had a set, but that didn't matter. Neighbors crowded into living rooms, sitting cross-legged on floors, watching a tiny black and white screen that flickered like a ghost. The curtains were drawn, the tea was poured, and for the first time since the war, Britain watched the same moment together. It wasn't just a broadcast, it was hope, wrapped in static. Number 3. Sunday best. If you grew up in the 1950s, you had 2 wardrobes, everyday clothes and Sunday best. The everyday ones were patched, faded, and probably inherited. But Sunday best, that was sacred. Polished shoes, pressed collars, and for girls, a ribbon in the hair. You didn't just wear it to church, you wore it to be seen. In town, at grandma's, even for photographs that still sit framed on sideboards today. If you dared spill gravy or grass stains on your Sunday outfit, you'd hear about it all week. Respectability wasn't optional. It was who you were. Number 4. Short trousers and scratchy clothes. For boys, short trousers were eternal, no matter the weather. Knees were perpetually grazed, socks never quite matched, and the only coat was your own body heat. Mothers said it built character, though it mostly built chilblains. Girls wore pinafores, plaits, and ribbons that always came loose. There were no designer labels, just hand-me-downs and the odd new cardigan at Christmas. You didn't dress for fashion, you dressed to last. Number 5. Respectability and routine. People in the 1950s lived by unwritten rules. You said good morning to strangers. You stood for the elderly on buses. You polished your shoes even if no one would notice. Life was measured, predictable, and that's how people liked it. Respect wasn't demanded, it was assumed. You might not have had much, but you had standards, and that was enough. Number 6. Letters, not phones. Before texts, before emails, before even the idea of instant, communication came with patience. Writing a letter wasn't just about words, it was an event. You chose your best pen, folded the paper neatly, and walked it to the red postbox on the corner. Waiting for a reply could take a week or more. But when it came, that familiar handwriting, the stamp from a few towns over, it felt worth every moment. A single letter carried more warmth than 100 messages do today. Number 7. The prefab dream. After the bomb damage of the 1940s, thousands of families moved into prefabricated homes. Little boxes of steel and optimism. 2 bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, and an electric cooker that looked straight out of the future. If you had indoor plumbing, you were practically posh. Neighbors shared washing lines and gossip over fences that barely existed. You could hear your neighbor cough, smell their dinner, and still feel safe. Prefab life was about starting again, from rubble to routine, and for many it was the first time they could say, "This is our home." Number 8. School days. Discipline was carved into every wooden desk. You stood when the teacher entered. You said, "Sir" or "Miss," and you meant it. Ink pens leaked across fingers and cuffs, and exercise books smelled faintly of chalk and fear. There was no time out. There was the cane, or the ruler, or a glare that could silence a room. Lessons were recited by heart, and mistakes were rubbed out, not forgiven. But behind the strictness was structure, and for many, it worked. You learned respect, handwriting, and how to keep quiet. All three seem rare today. Number 9. Sundays and the church. Sunday was the day Britain pressed pause. Shops were shut, radios played hymns, and everyone, whether they wanted to or not, seemed to end up in church. You walked there in your best coat, past neat gardens and quiet streets. Children fidgeted in pews while mothers glared and fathers nodded off halfway through the sermon. Afterwards came the roast. Beef if you were lucky, spam if you weren't. The day wasn't about religion as much as rhythm. Sunday was a shared silence, a slower heartbeat, and even those who stopped believing kept going because it's just what you did. Number 10. The kitchen revolution. The 1950s. Kitchen was small but mighty, a workshop for thrift and invention. No microwaves, no ready meals, just ration book creativity. Mothers became masters of stretching everything. One chicken into 3 meals, leftover bread into puddings, and every drop of dripping reused. By the late 50s, new appliances started creeping in. Washing machines, electric kettles, and those shining chrome toasters that felt like pure luxury. A fridge, if you could afford one, was a status symbol. Cold milk on a hot day, that was living the dream. Number 11. The smell of coal and polish. Before central heating, warmth was a daily effort. You'd wake to frosted windows and the sound of someone downstairs coaxing a fire back to life. The air smelled of coal dust and furniture polish, mixed with the faint tang of bacon grease. Every surface gleamed because house pride was serious business. Mothers buffed, brushed, and scrubbed until the house shone. Not for guests, but for themselves. A tidy home meant you were doing all right. Number 12. Entertainment before screens. Before television took over, people made their own fun. Cards, dominoes, knitting, or a bit of wireless drama in the background. Families talked, or at least sat in the same room. Kids played conkers, marbles, or British bulldog in the street until the lamplighter came by. If you were bored, you were told to use your imagination, and you did. Because imagination was all you had. Number 13. Holidays at home. You didn't need to fly to feel free. A holiday at Butlins, Skegness, or Blackpool was pure magic, even when it rained. You shared a chalet, ate bacon every morning, and let the redcoats run the show. There was sand in your shoes, wind in your face, and the sense that life could be fun again. It didn't matter if it poured, you swam anyway. That's British optimism at its finest. Number 14. The return of color and fun. After years of grey, the world slowly brightened. Shop windows filled with color, nylon blouses, floral teacups, and toys made from shiny new plastic instead of wood or tin. People smiled more, music played louder, and cinemas promised technicolor worlds you could only dream of. By the end of the decade, rock and roll had arrived, teenagers had money, and skirts crept shorter by the month. Britain wasn't quite modern yet, but you could feel it coming. Number 15. Gratitude for the little things. If there's one thing that defined life in the 1950s, it was gratitude. After rationing, after loss, after years of going without, every comfort felt earned. A hot meal, a warm bed, a new pair of shoes. People didn't expect more. They appreciated what they had. It wasn't an easy life, but it was a proud one. And maybe that's the lesson the 50s left behind. Happiness isn't about having everything, but about valuing what's there. Britain in the 1950s was slow, simple, and strong. It wasn't glamorous, but it was grounded, built on politeness, hard work, and quiet hope. The people who grew up then carried that spirit into every decade that followed. So, what do you remember most? The smell of coal smoke? The feel of a scratchy school jumper? Let us know in the comments. And until next time, keep your tea hot, your shoes polished, and carry on being proudly British.